Hey, how you doing, Brad? Good to see you, brother. A lot going on up there, Brad.
Oh, boy. All good.
Congratulations. All right. Well, everybody, we are here at the Tow Pound because we want to make a point about this city we love. We love the city. It's the greatest city in the world, but it should not be so hard to get around in New York City. And we all know it is. We all know it's a struggle every day for New Yorkers to get where they need to go. And we know that our buses are so important to New Yorkers all over the 5 boroughs. It's the way so many people get where they need to go, and yet too often the buses crawl along when we need them to speed along. So we're going to do something about it. We've got 2.5 million bus riders every single day. Just think about that for a moment. 2.5 million bus riders every day. We owe it to them to speed up bus service. And the plan we are talking about today is projected to increase the speed of our buses by 25% over the next 2 years so that New Yorkers can get where they need to go. I want to thank everybody here at the Tow Pound for the work they do. This is going to be crucial. Clearing out those lanes, making sure that the buses can move. And it's really clear to all the folks out there who think about or ever think about parking in a bus lane, don't do it. Don't do it. Because these good public servants are coming to get you out of that bus lane if you're blocking millions of New Yorkers from being able to get where they need to go. No one wants to see cars towed. If you don't violate the law, you're going to be fine. But we're here to send a very strong message. There's no parking in our bus lanes. It will not be allowed, and we're going to have the enforcement ability to address it. I want to thank everyone who's been a part of putting this plan together. You're going to hear from Chief Chan in a moment, who's been key to this effort. But I also, of course, want to thank our Deputy Mayor for Operations, Laura Anglin. She and her team have worked very hard on making sure that we can increase bus speeds, and I want to thank her for that. And from DOT, the Chief Operating Officer, Margaret Forgione. Thank you, Margaret, to you and everyone at DOT. Now, in the State of the City, we talked about the fact that New Yorkers don't have enough time. We don't have enough time for our families. We don't have enough time for ourselves. There's a lot of things that we're going to do about that. One of the simplest things we can do is help people get where they need to go faster. It's within our power to do so. It's within our power to get people more and better options for getting around. That's why, for example, we announced the expansion of NYC Ferry. That's why we're going to be fighting these next months in Albany for a plan to actually fund the MTA properly and get our subways to run on time. The goal here is to make sure that we speed things up and we have better options. And we can do it. When it comes to buses, clearing out the lanes is part of what we need to do. We also can do other things like get technology to help us synchronize the stoplights so that buses get first preference. Installing more SBS routes also. We are adamant that select bus service is a crucial part of our future. It's working. Wherever we put it in, it's working. We need to do a lot more, and we need to do it faster, and we intend to. So our job now is to go right at the problems that we face. And the NYPD, when you give the NYPD a mission, they know what to do. That has been proven time and time again. So for the first time ever, the NYPD will have a squad of tow trucks and drivers dedicated specifically to clearing out the bus lanes. We know it's going to make a big difference. 7 teams will operate in all 5 boroughs, and this is a start. We're going to assess it as we go along, and if we need to build upon it and add, we will keep adding to make sure that the bus lanes are clear. Again, I know it is hard to find a place to park in New York City. I drove myself around for a long time. I circled the block a whole long time looking for a parking space in my neighborhood. I understand what everyday New Yorkers go through. But again, it may be tough to find a parking spot, but I can tell you where you shouldn't even think about parking, and that's in a bus lane, because there will be consequences, and it's not worth it. We believe that we can, working together, make life better for all New Yorkers. So for drivers, help your fellow New Yorkers by not parking in the bus lanes. And with this effort to speed up the buses, more and more New Yorkers will be able to choose mass transit, and they can get out of their cars. And that's going to take cars off the road and reduce congestion also. So we could have a virtuous circle here if we get it right. That's what we intend to do. I want to emphasize, we know, again, that if it's hard to find a place to park, we know it's tempting. But because these drivers and these tow trucks are going to be around, don't do things the way you used to if you used to park in a bus lane. Find a legal place. Help everyone keep moving. This is part of what will give us the opportunity to give New Yorkers back their time and make this a city that's easier for everyone to live in. Just a few words in Spanish. Cada auto estacionado en un carril de autobuses significa un tiempo precioso que pierden neoyorquinos. Nuestras grúas aseguran que los pasajeros de autobuses pueden llegar a tiempo al trabajo y pasar más tiempo con sus familias. Promover el respeto a las carriles de autobuses es parte de nuestro plan para mejorar las opciones de transporte para todos. With that, I want to turn to our Chief of Transportation for the NYPD. He and his team have done an outstanding job implementing Vision Zero, among other things, and he's going to talk about this new effort and how it's going to help to keep the bus lanes clear. Chief Tom Chan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Mayor de Blasio, Commissioner Forgione, our elected officials, and members of the media here today. The NYPD recognizes the important role of a safe, on-time bus performance plays in New York City transportation network. As such, the NYPD is collaborating with our colleagues from the MTA and DOT to keep our bus routes across all 5 boroughs clear of illegally parked vehicles. As the mayor mentioned in the State of City address, the police department now has a dedicated team of tow trucks and enforcement agents that patrol bus lanes, routes across the city with the goal of increasing bus speeds. This bus unit deploys daily as a complement to our existing enforcement deployment. Beginning last year, the NYPD began meeting frequently with our members of the MTA bus operations in order to develop a plan in response to New York City's most congested bus routes. As a result of this partnership, we determined specific bus routes in each borough that would benefit most from increased attention by towing and also enforcement resources. I want to thank the Mayor de Blasio and his staff for his leadership in forming this tow truck unit that will serve New York's transportation network. Motorists, certainly, beware. Stay clear. Don't obstruct bus stops and bus lanes or the routes themselves. Remember, the price of blocking a bus lane is costly both to your wallet and also for the livelihood of New York City. And I want to point out, for a bus stop or a bus lane violation, parking summons is $115. If you are told by the NYPD, that adds an additional $185 for that cost for parking in that bus lane or bus stop. In 2019, since the beginning of the year, for the calendar year, we've increased our bus stop and bus lane parkers by 28%. Moving violations for driving in those bus lanes have increased by 612%. Bus lane, bus stops, and lane and stop tolls tolled by our traffic enforcement district personnel have also increased by 7%. And again, a warning to our New Yorkers and our drivers who are in New York City, please stay out of the bus lanes and the bus stops and keep our buses moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it very much. Now I want to turn to State Senator Brad Hoylman. We're in his district. I want to thank him. He has been a tremendous advocate for more and better mass transit options and for making sure that we take the measures necessary to help people get around. But I also want to just congratulate him and his colleagues in the State Senate. We have never seen anything like this in the history of Albany and our state government, the history of this whole state. The extraordinary beginning of this legislative session, literally decades worth of old business finally being addressed, but such powerful actions just in a matter of days. Our state Senate has reformed our election laws, has protected the rights of women, has given support to our dreamers. It's unbelievable, it's unprecedented, and Senator, you have a lot to be proud of, and as do your colleagues and Leader Stuart Cousins. So congratulations. Senator Brad Hoylman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Credit where credit is due, brother.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay.
A little extra height there.
Oh, sure, why not? I can always use that. State Senator Brad Hoylman, as the mayor mentioned, you are in the 27th Senate District, and I want to thank the mayor and the NYPD for all of your work, the deputy mayor, and of course our deputy commissioner, who I've known for years and worked together closely for years. This is such an important issue, Mr. Mayor, and I'm so grateful that you included it in your State of the City, mostly because in this Senate district we have the slowest bus speeds in the entire city. In fact, the Riders Alliance, as part of their bus turnaround campaign, identified 3 bus lines that were the slowest, and they all happen to be in the 27th district. The first one is the M50, which runs at the pace of 4.5 miles per hour. Our constituents call that bus line the Turtle. There's the M23, which clocks in at 4.3 miles per hour. That's called the Sloth by my constituents. And then finally, coming in at 3rd place is the M42 at 3.9 miles per hour, known as the Slug. Squirrels can run at a faster pace than these buses. The average human speed is 3.1 miles per hour just walking. The good news is you don't have to run to catch a bus on these lanes. But the bad news is, Mr. Mayor, as you pointed out, congestion, parked cars are killing the ability for New Yorkers to take buses, particularly those who might be seniors or differently abled. I'm so appreciative for this initiative and look forward to working with you in Albany. I can finally say that, in Albany, to make change in mass transit. Thank you.
Amen. Change will happen. Thank you, brother. All right. We are going to take some questions on this announcement about the bus lanes, and then we're going to go to other topics. First, anything about the bus lanes? Yes?
Can you break down the fee structure again? So you get a summons, but what if your car gets towed to the pound? Do you then have to pay to get your car out?
Chief?
When you receive the summons again, maybe for the violation, the towing fee will be $185 to retrieve your vehicle. And then again, you are responsible ultimately to deal with the parking summons that you could do at a later time.
What is the parking summons? How much?
The parking summons for the bus stop or the bus lane is $115.
You might want to hang around because there may be more for you. Yes?
Mayor, what is select bus service for people who don't know, and why is it helpful?
So I'll give you the layman's definition, and then Margaret can jump in with something more exact. So select bus service is dedicated lane bus service. It's express in the sense of it's fewer stops, but it has its own dedicated lane, and that allows it to move much more smoothly. It's been very popular because it moves. And we've put it in a number of neighborhoods, and it's actually really the workhorse now in terms of the new things that we are creating that are literally changing tens of people's lives. Tens of thousands, excuse me, of people's lives. Not tens, tens of thousands.
Good. Well, the mayor did a good job. I'll just add that select bus service entails red bus lanes, off-board fare collection, so that people pay their fare off-board and they just take a ticket with them onto the bus, so you don't have the delay of people fumbling around for Metro cards. It also comes with transit signal prioritization, meaning that as a bus, and it's not each and every intersection, but as part of this effort, we're adding hundreds and hundreds of transit bus prioritization intersections. But that's where a bus will approach a signal, and if it's getting ready to turn yellow and then red, it will stay green so that the bus may pass through it, and then it will continue on its regular cycle.
The bus that I ride every day doesn't go on a dedicated bus lane. It just goes down the street. There are often double parked cars, trucks making deliveries. Not necessarily cars that are parked there long term, but maybe for 15 minutes while someone runs into the store. Is there any part of this effort that would include more just ticketing? Because I would think that by the time it would take to get a tow truck out there, a truck making deliveries would have moved on, or somebody running in to get coffee would have gone on their way, and it would be a short-term problem, but it's still a problem when it's happening.
Yeah, Chief will talk. I agree with you. The common sense that there's not going to be a tow truck instantaneously everywhere. So Chief will talk about ticketing versus towing or the combination. But I do want to say I think there's a real difference if someone, for example, pulls into a bus lane and lets their child out or lets a passenger out and then moves on and they're staying in the car and the car is on. That's a very different scenario than if they park. Once you park, once you turn off your engine, you're susceptible to consequences. Why don't you tell them?
Thank you. When we're talking about vehicles, again, as you mentioned, the mayor mentioned before, where an individual just simply drop off somebody, they're not going to get a summons. We will move them along. But what happened is that throughout the city, all the traffic agents, we've designated the parking violation for parking at a bus stop and parking in a bus lane itself as a priority summons, almost considering equal to a parking at a fire hydrant, a crosswalk, and things of that nature. So our traffic agents are looking for that violation. And if our tow trucks are there, even if they're not part of this particular tow truck unit, they're going to be targeting those vehicles that are blocking and preventing our buses from moving.
For trucks that are making deliveries, where the person's saying, I have to make this delivery, how do you handle that?
Again, we certainly will try to move them along to find another location for them. But again, ultimately, the buses need to run, and we're not going to allow these vehicles to block their lanes or the routes itself.
And Margaret, maybe you could speak to this. There's a lot of people in this city and a lot of vehicles, and there's never enough space. But there are a number of spaces dedicated for deliveries. So Margaret, could you speak to that?
Whenever we design a bus lane, we spend a lot of time talking with the community, including property owners, businesses, all of those sorts of folks. And what we do is we determine their loading needs. So what we will do sometimes is have a bus lane that has a big break in the middle of the day to allow commercial deliveries. Other times we try to work with businesses to do off-hour deliveries, or we'll make sure that the other side of the street is all commercial loading and unloading, as well as possibly some side street loading. So we take all those factors into account. Is it perfect? It's not perfect, but we do everything we can to accommodate the needs of everybody on the street.
Yeah.
One of the biggest issues, whether you're a cyclist or pedestrian or another driver, is sometimes city cars, whether it's NYPD cars, in bike lanes, in bus lanes, they throw in an expired PPA card or a placard and they don't get ticketed. So I wanted to ask if you have an update on the placard report, and if you have data on the number of city vehicles, whether it's a SWAT car or a police car, that have been towed, ticketed in bus lanes and bike lanes.
So on the placard reform that will be in February, we will have that update. And Chief Chan, why don't you speak about how we deal with city vehicles? Again, they've stopped, they've parked in a bus lane. We need the bus lane clear. Talk about how we address that, including when we use towing.
Certainly. In 2018, we actually notified through what we call the finest message, every precinct and every police department unit within the New York City Police Department, that parking in bus lanes and bus stops is prohibited. And again, there are, with the exception of a unit responding on an emergency, they're running up, there's somebody's having a heart attack, then they are going to respond on that. But in general, parking is prohibited even by our unmarked cars and things of that nature, and they will be ticketed or they will be towed.
And they didn't already know not to park in a bike lane or a bus lane?
On occasion, certainly, we have had vehicles and we had people who were either disciplined, we've had some towing, and again, I don't have the exact number, we can get you the numbers, but we've, last year, I don't want to give you a number that's not accurate, but we can give you that number later in terms of how many summonses were issued for parking in violation.
Yeah, look, we're making it very clear. There's been a series of announcements and more coming next month, and our public employees have to pay attention or there will be consequences. As simple as that. Yeah.
Question, if you can, I noticed you all increased enforcement of bus lanes in 2018. It didn't seem to have an effect on citywide average bus speeds. They stayed pretty much flat. So I'm wondering how this strategy is different than you're announcing today, and then how you're going to evaluate it.
Well, first and foremost, again, the strategy is throughout the city itself. We work with our MTA partners, and we've been meeting with them since the summer of last year. And what happened is that while there were some slight increases throughout the city, they identified the most problematic routes where we will be concentrating our effort. But throughout the city, our other toll vehicles and also our traffic agents will be working on it. So it's a work in progress. But again, from our MTA partners, who we meet every month, they're telling it it's getting better. All right, but again, it's a work in progress.
Providing information about which routes are targeted and how they performed after the enforcement done?
Yeah, because yes, the answer is yes. We want this to work. We need it to work. The combination of factors here, including giving priority in the signals and greater enforcement and all the messaging about the fact that there's going to be greater enforcement, we think that's going to add up. But if we have to do more, we're going to keep doing more.
Says there's going to be 7 new tow.
7 units, yeah.
Does that mean 7 trucks?
No, it's 7 units. It's different depending on where they are. Do you want to speak to it?
And it can be more than 7 by far. And what happened is that, well, we have tow trucks. They may be working in tandem in teams where agents may be summoning, and then some of the vehicles, tow trucks, are actually towing. So it's a combination of both. So we're not saying just 7 tow trucks itself. It's more.
Upper end of that limit is between 7 and how many trucks?
I would venture to say from 7 to 10, 7 to 11, 12. Again, based on what we see out there, if there's more vehicles that need to be towed, we're going to put out more tow trucks.
Actually, the statistics that you gave, the percentage increases for this year, do you have that data as raw numbers as well?
So just to clarify on your question, so it's 7 units. They're being given responsibility for different areas. They're targeting the most problematic bus routes to begin. And as this works, if we find we need to keep adding more personnel, more tow trucks, we're going to do it. Yeah.
On Twitter, as I'm typing about this announcement, a lot of people are writing back, add bike lanes to this. Why not include bike lanes in this effort, and are there plans to do that?
This is about bus lanes. There's lots of enforcement also for bike lanes, but right now we're talking about a part of our mass transit system that needs real help. It's 2.5 million riders a day. Bike lanes are important, but they by no means reach that kind of number. This is 2.5 million riders a day. We have got to do more to clear the bike lanes. This is the focus of this announcement.
Yeah, I had a question about just if you could clarify traffic signal priority, what that is. So
Well, which one? Be Margaret.
that the bus driver presses.
Could you make it visual? What traffic signal priority?
Okay, we currently have about 600 intersections that have transit signal priority. What that entails is that there's, for lack of a better word, a beacon on the bus. So the traffic signal knows when a bus is approaching. The driver doesn't have to do anything. And as the bus approaches the intersection, if it's at a certain point within the signal cycle, if it's already turned yellow, it's not going to go back to green. It's not going to do anything that starts raising any questions in the minds of any drivers. But as I mentioned, if it is getting ready to turn yellow and then red, it will delay by a few seconds. It knows where the bus is in order to allow that bus to pass through the intersection and then turn to yellow and then red.
Okay, anything else? Oh, I'm sorry, over there.
Is there a sense, this isn't so much about parking, but
A little louder?
is there a sense in how effective the camera enforcement has been in the bike lanes?
The existing camera enforcement? Either one of you want to speak to? How effective has the existing camera enforcement been?
Yes, so we have cameras in 13 of our 16 select bus routes. So people that breach into the bus lane will receive a ticket in the mail. And we have found a tremendous drop-off, and I can get you the numbers later, a tremendous drop-off that after it has been implemented in terms of compliance with the bus lanes. So it's proved very invaluable in running the bus program.
Have you reviewed the governor's budget proposal to expand that camera program?
Yes, my understanding is that this would greatly expand and benefit the city. Yes.
Anybody over here? Yeah, Rich.
Mayor, will this be concentrated like a morning drive and afternoon drive? When's the last time you took a bus?
I took a bus when we did the select bus service announcement in the Bronx. I think it was during Bronx Week last year, but I'm not 100% sure. We can get you the exact date and place. But it was really cool. The select bus service was really fantastic. I have always been more of a subway guy than a bus guy, though. I have to give you full disclosure. In my history before I had a car, which is before 1999, overwhelmingly subway, only occasionally buses.
Morning and afternoon?
It's obviously the most sensitive time. And as you heard, some of these bus lane, some of the lane rules break during the day to allow for deliveries and all, but the most sensitive time is definitely in the rush hours. But either one of you want to speak to how you're going to target your time?
We do have routes that are identified specifically during rush hour, and some of them in the afternoon, and they do vary on those issues, on the times.
Okay, on this announcement, any other questions on this? Yes? A bridge. Thank you.
It's kind of a two-parter, but about lanes and traffic. So do you have any update on what's going to happen for the bus lanes that were proposed for the L train shutdown now that the shutdown is not going to happen? Is the city going to lose that expansion of bus service?
So we're taking this in stages. As you know, we had a very elaborate plan ready to address the shutdown, the previous approach. Once the new proposal came forward, our job was to understand it and confirm that we thought it would work and would make sense for New Yorkers. We do believe it does work, and we do believe it does make sense. There's going to be, ongoing operational issues to work through. Obviously, we're going to be very vigilant to make sure things are working properly. But now we have to decide what that means now with this new plan in terms of mitigating the impact. And then if there's anything that we were planning that is no longer needed because of the L train, but that we might want to do anyway. So we got through phase one. Now we have to make those decisions first about how we work with this new plan, and then if there's anything we want to do permanently for other reasons. That's going to take several weeks.
On the governor's plan to expand enforcement cameras, one thing in his budget called for the revenue from speed cameras in particular to go to the MTA. That money now goes to the general fund, your budget.
Yeah.
Is that a concern for you?
Well, of course. The money that we receive from enforcement helps us pay for enforcement. I mean, that's the most obvious part of the equation, and we're going to be doing more enforcement. So we never want this revenue. I want to be clear. It's the same thing with the speed cameras around the school. The schools, the perfect reality would be that speed camera never goes off and there's no revenue because no one's speeding. The same with the bus lane cameras. But until we reach that nirvana, we're going to be having to do a lot of enforcement. It costs a lot of money. It's to save lives. It's to keep everything moving. And we need that revenue. That's the bottom line. Okay, on this, yes, please. I just want to see if there's anything, because that was a bridge-ish. Is there anything on this topic of the bus lanes going once, twice, new topics?
So I wanted to ask you about the delay in the proposed MTA repair and toll hike. Your appointee seconded a proposal put forward by the governor's appointee. I wanted to see if you have any thoughts on that. It needs to be delayed. If you want further study on a fair and toll hike.
Yeah. One, the thing we need to focus on is a solution in Albany. I mean, this is, I'm going to keep saying it to people, April 1st is D-Day. I know the senator feels that. Everything else is secondary to getting a final decision on how we're going to fix the MTA and how we're going to pay for it. And that can only be done by the legislature and the governor. And I fundamentally believe it needs to be done as part of the budget to actually work. At the same time, I know the board, the MTA board, is having a collegial conversation about how and when to address the fare increase issue. They, I think, also feel it's very important to get further assurances, one, that there's going to be action in Albany, and two, that the MTA is going to do some things differently. And I believe that's part of what this pause is about. And I think that's smart. But when all this gets done, what I hope to see is a new funding plan, some real reforms in the MTA, and the ability to take the resources they have and use them well. Anybody? Yes.
So Staten Island city council members are upset about the city's plans for two new homeless shelters on the North Shore and the South Shore. They're upset that the city didn't involve them in the site selection process. Can you explain why they weren't involved or why they weren't informed? And also explain.
Can I take the first part and then we'll go to the second? I'm not familiar with the specifics of how consultation went. We made clear almost 2 years ago, if I'm counting right, that we were changing our approach to shelter, that we wanted our shelter system to reflect the realities of the whole city, and that any part of the city that had folks who became homeless from those neighborhoods but didn't have any shelter capacity in those neighborhoods, that didn't make sense and it wasn't fair, and we would be putting in shelter capacity consistent with the number of homeless folks from each community. So if I remember correctly, in Staten Island, it's over 1,000 Staten Islanders that are currently in our shelter system. So we've had a goal very clearly publicly stated for most of 2 years now to create the shelter capacity consistent with the number of folks from Staten Island in shelter. We've been working on sites ever since. I think typically what our Homeless Services Department has done is talk to a variety of people in the community about different options, but they still have to choose a place that works. And then they work with the community, including the council members, to figure out how to make it work best in terms of day-to-day operations. So I can get back to you about what consultative process occurred, but the bottom line is we have to create these shelters to have fairness across the city. I've been through a lot of these, and that's just not accurate. I mean, again, each situation may be different, but I can only tell you my own experience where we've engaged a lot of elected officials. We've said we need more capacity in your area. We've welcomed nominations. Some of those nominations have worked really well. Other times they haven't been workable. The honest truth is a lot of elected officials obviously would like the answer to be there's not going to be anything in my district. We look forward to the day when there won't be that need anymore, but it's not real now. But anyone who brings us an idea, we follow up on, and we try to work with the elected officials once we have an idea to make it work. I've seen a lot of give and take, a lot of consultation. Again, I don't know the specifics in this case. We'll get back to you on that. Yes?
Mr. Mayor, hedge fund billionaire Kenneth Griffith purchased...
Who again, please?
Hedge fund billionaire Kenneth Griffith, I believe, purchased...
Kenneth Griffith?
Yeah, he's a hedge fund billionaire. He purchased this $238 million apartment on Central Park South recently. And you've said just a few weeks ago, there's plenty of money in the city. It's in the wrong hands. My question to you is, what do you think that says about income inequality, a purchase of an apartment at that cost? And do you think the city is getting the accurate amount of benefit from those sort of large purchases that we see in the city?
One, it says that something is fundamentally broken in our country, and it has to be addressed. When I ran, remember, I started talking about the income inequality crisis in this city 6 years ago. And we keep seeing more millionaires and billionaires, and we're still not seeing everyday working people getting their fair share for what they do. So something's fundamentally wrong. It has to be solved in large measure at the national level, starting with the repeal of the Trump tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations. This is going to be a very urgent fight. I guarantee you this is going to be the topic in the next 2 years in this country. That income inequality is off the charts, and it's unacceptable, and the situation is broken. In terms of what we are able to demand of the wealthy, it's not enough because the laws of this state are still too friendly to millionaires and billionaires. The 1% still dominates our legal structure. And that's the whole point. That's been going on since the time of Ronald Reagan, that the laws, the tax laws, and a whole other lot of laws help the 1% get richer and richer and richer. I've talked about a lot of different ideas that would address that, including the mansion tax idea, which would explicitly go at those type of high-value purchases, take more tax money from them, and create senior affordable housing with it. That's the way of the future, in my view.
About the millionaire's tax, you said you believe people such as this individual would stay in the city. Do you think this is proof of that point?
Absolutely. Look, you know, you look at these massive purchases. Does anyone think that these rich individuals can't afford more in taxes? They have been getting tax break after tax break after tax break. Before the Trump tax bill, they were already experiencing unprecedented wealth, and they had a whole system of tax policy that was favoring them in every conceivable way. The Trump tax cuts put that on steroids. The situation's out of control. It's absolutely out of control. It's dangerous. It's going to undermine the cohesion of this country. And we are seeing it now with the government shutdown. That it's, people are angrier and angrier, and they're asking the question more and more. How on earth do the rich keep getting richer and the rest of us are just struggling? So this is a really crucial moment. I think every everyday New Yorker and everyday New Yorker sees that purchase. They know in their hearts what I know. Of course that person should be paying more in taxes. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about the East Side Building Resiliency Project. There was a hearing about it yesterday at the council. It's a two-part question. The first is, will the additional money needed for the project be in next year's capital budget? And then the second part is, you know, given that it's been 6 years since Hurricane Sandy and the streets are flooded when it rains, what do you think about your administration's progress, especially given that there's been 3 infrastructure resiliency projects completed, and that's really been it?
No, that's not accurate, respectfully. There's been a huge number of resiliency projects that have been undertaken all over the city since Sandy. Again, we'll get you all to chapter and verse, but a lot of these projects are multi-year projects, so I am absolutely certain that we're moving a very aggressive resiliency agenda. Billions and billions of dollars being acted on right now. There's been a lot of progress. You know, an obvious example is the Rockaways, but there's many others. But this plan, we did a couple of things with. One was we ensured that the changes would not change the timeline. 2, we wanted a plan that would create more resiliency. Resiliency for the park itself, and resiliency in terms of addressing all of the infrastructure underneath the park and ensuring that it was dealt with properly up front rather than at a point of crisis later on. So we believe this is actually a plan that is ultimately more cost efficient, that will keep us on schedule, and is the best way to protect the communities, but also the park itself.
$1 million be in next year's capital budget?
Laura, I'm looking to you. Next, you can come over.
Yes, we are still in the process of finalizing the plan, but additional resources will be put in there to make sure this project can move forward.
Since you brought it up, I know last year beaches on the Rocky Peninsula had to close because they were so eroded. Do you have an update on the sand replenishment project there?
We have been talking to the Army Corps engineers. I had another conversation with the leader of the Army Corps a few weeks ago. I'm very hopeful, I'm knocking wood, that we will have an important announcement quite soon, but there's a little more work to be done.
Mr. Mayor, there's a number of issues in recent months that you've kind of taken the reins of and said, we're not going to wait for the federal government, we're not going to wait for the state. And I'm just wondering whether you've considered doing the same thing with congestion pricing, given what an impact it would make on, you know, the residents in your city. You've taken kind of more of a reactive, let's wait and see what they come up with. Why not come up with a plan that would make you happy?
Fair point, but I would say, one, I have no illusion about how the process works. This is a decision that can only happen in Albany. And in this instance, it can only be sorted out properly by the people who are doing the work in Albany. I have raised a series of concerns, as you know. I understand the idea behind congestion pricing, but I also understand there are real concerns, in my view, about fairness and about how such a thing could be implemented in a way that was truly progressive. In my view, what we need, first and foremost, is a solution to the MTA budget crisis. I've said I believe the millionaire's tax is the best option. There are other important ideas out there. Internet sales tax, marijuana revenue. There's a lot, State Transportation Bond Act. There's a lot of different ideas being talked about. But I think in the end, we need to put pressure on Albany to decide on the package that they can live with. I'm open to different options, but it has to be something that will actually pass by April 1st. Yes?
Mayor, there were some allegations made in federal court paperwork this week that a donor to you, Charlene Gale, a Brooklyn real estate agent, had been given special treatment because of her connections to you in seeking gun permits for people. She was working as an expediter. I'm curious what you make of that allegation and whether you know Ms. Gale has attended any fundraisers held by her.
Okay, very quick. This larger issue that there have been problems in the NYPD on gun permits, that problem dates back, unfortunately, to the previous administration. It was uncovered during our administration. It was addressed very aggressively, and those abuses were ended in our administration. Whatever happened in the past is not happening anymore, period. So that's the broader point. I certainly know Ms. Gale. I know nothing about this. I've never heard about this allegation before or had any knowledge of anything like this.
Fundraisers for you? Was she somebody that was...
She's certainly been a supporter, absolutely. Yes.
Mayor, the police commissioner seems to be saying that the security of the city is beginning to be compromised by the shutdown because the funding is not flowing to certain parts of the department. I wonder whether you think that how big a concern is that for you? And also with the president now being banned from doing a State of the Union, do you think the positions in Washington are hardening, or do you think that this is the kind of leverage that will begin to settle?
I think Speaker Pelosi was 100% right to say it's not appropriate to give a State of the Union speech when the government is not functioning. I don't think that is a suggestion of positions hardening. I think that's just common sense. And I think the American people would have resented the pageantry of the State of the Union when clearly our government does not have its act together. On the question of this city, there are real threats from this shutdown. I delineated some of them last week. The direct threat to everyday New Yorkers starting in April is unbelievable, what it's going to mean for people's lives. Certainly, if security funding is compromised for any appreciable amount of time, that does affect us. So, of course, I share the commissioner's concerns. But I want people to understand the sheer magnitude that, you're talking about, in short order, 2 million New Yorkers are going to, and I think actually some of it's March and more in April, 2 million New Yorkers are going to start to feel the negative effects directly. 2 million people. So this is very, very serious business. Let's see if there's anything else. Going once, twice, yes. Again, I think I'm saying something for a very specific reason. I think what the board is doing is saying, and by the way, appointees from different people, all in unison, are making a point that Albany must come up with a plan and that the MTA must give some answers about how they're going to comport themselves differently going forward. I think it was smart to say we need a pause to address those issues. We need to make sure that those two things are going to happen. That's the bottom line. I have not seen the bill, so I can't speak about specifics, but I can say that the ideas are good ideas, and we obviously had been training people, but in the aftermath of that horrible incident, a lot was done to ensure there'd be further training and to clarify when supervision needed to be brought in the middle of a situation. But I certainly welcome the council's interests, and we're going to look at those bills with a very open mind, because we want to make sure something like that never ever happens again. Okay, thanks everyone. Oh wait, Rich, go ahead.
E-bikes, e-scooters, what's the latest bills? What you're thinking? Are you changing your mind? Are you kind of where you were before?
Yeah, I mean, I start with the safety question. Right now, one, we all know that the e-bikes are not legal, the pedal assist are, and one of the central reasons for that is the e-bikes go a lot faster. We have to have a way to address the speed of the e-bikes. So as we look to Albany, where some of this has to happen, other things can be done at the city level, we've got to get the safety piece right. That is my central concern. And until I see something that ensures safety, I'm not going to be comfortable. But I do want to work with the state, and I do want to work with the city council to figure out if there's a way to do that in terms of the e-bikes. I'm hopeful we can find a solution. The scooters are a little more complicated to me because they're a new wrinkle in all this. And I am concerned about how we take e-bikes at one speed, scooters at another speed, regular bicycles at another speed, and they're all going to be occupying the same bike lanes. How do we make sense of that and keep everyone safe? I am open-minded, but I need to see something that will actually achieve that level of safety we must have in this city. Thanks, everyone.